Hi everyone, and welcome back to Alpha Art Gallery's Meet the Artist series. My name is Jamie DeLuca. I'm a photo video intern here at the gallery, and I'm joined today by Judy Levy. She's an exhibiting artist in our upcoming New Brunswick Art Salon's NBA's Watercolor and Mixed Media exhibition. Hi Judy, how are you?
How are you?
Good. So for our first question, in your artist statement, you mentioned that you gravitate most towards working with watercolors. What inspired you to explore this medium initially, and how has it impacted your art journey over time?
First, I just want to thank you for inviting me here to be at the prestigious Alfa Gallery in New Brunswick, New Jersey, and to be able to talk about my journey as an artist and my work in the upcoming exhibit. So yes, I had gravitated at the beginning especially toward watercolor, and because after working with oil and acrylic for many years, I took a class with a well-known artist in the area, Barbara Minch, who at the time was painting cityscapes in watercolor, and I just liked her work and thought that might be a good place for me to be. She taught me to experiment with the medium and to understand the fluidity of watercolor and how to create color and fine detail in my work, which is the style that I use. In Barbara's class, I tried different watercolor techniques and papers and subject matter as I explored watercolor, and it took me a very nice path.
That's great. I see that you also mentioned you like to incorporate non-traditional materials into your paintings, such as sewn fabric. Does this inclusion of assorted fabrics point to an interest in sustainable art?
Well, in my search for ways to be more creative and shed the traditional boundaries of watercolor, on paper, I've incorporated fabric and found objects into my watercolor paintings. After sewing and painting designs on fabric, I cut, sew, and glue these fabrics onto my watercolors, and I've done this for a while now. I have reused lace and old clothing, along with costume jewelry and household items to do my part to reduce materials that might otherwise end up in landfills. So that's been something of interest to me.
Your artist statement also mentioned your interest in sewing extends into your personal style through the creation of your own clothing. Within your art practice, do you have a favorite fabric or sewn material you've gravitated towards?
Well, I started sewing as a teenager because buying new clothes I found was quite expensive. So I convinced my father to buy me an old sewing machine, taught myself how to use it, and how to use patterns. And from there, as I got older, I changed from actually making my own clothes to doing some clothing for my children and my friends' children, and I did overalls and backpacks, and my favorite fabric has always been cotton because of its durability and the variety of colors and patterns that I was able to find in cotton. I then began to applique designs on the clothing, which attracted a lot of attention from my friends. They all asked if I would do it for their children, because I did it mostly on children's clothes. And one of my friends, who's also an artist, joined with me to start an applique company called Sewn Stuff. And we successfully sold applique overalls and sweatshirts for children for a number of years, but then we decided to move on. And I continued sewing on my own and continued painting with Barbara Minch as my teacher. But I also worked full-time as a communications coordinator for a school district, which was very, very fulfilling. I did that for many years.
It is also mentioned that you have a keen interest in nature and architectural design. What does the idea of nature and the importance of architectural design mean to you?
Well, my interest in drawing and painting what I see in nature started when I was a child, admiring the huge garden my parents had planted in our backyard. It was filled with flowers, vegetables, and fruit trees, and it was not a big space, but it filled the entire yard after a while. It started with little rows and then became almost our whole backyard. My parents expanded the garden every year with new varieties of plants, and I was always fascinated by the colors and shapes of the things that grew. My interest in architectural design also started as a child when my family visited New York City, and we did that often. Seeing the spectacular architectural shapes in the distance as we drove down the turnpike or getting there, and while we walked around in the city, shapes that form the skyline always left me amazed, and it still does today. So, and as an adult, I have traveled extensively in this country and abroad, and have taken photos of interesting flowers, landscapes, and architecture, which I have used in my paintings. I've kind of mixed up some of the architecture that I've seen, and sometimes made it, modernized it, or just used the shapes of the buildings that I see, and I've enjoyed doing that.
Along the same lines, how has creating paintings of your local landscapes changed your outlook on the environment around you?
Well, over the years I've seen the landscape change, and of course I do know that some of the changes have not been good for the environment. But as an artist, I'm always searching for the most interesting shapes, which I can always find, and designs and colors in nature and architecture, and I've just used what I've seen and tried to interpret it into a way that could be used for my designs.
In your About page, I see that you have an illustrious career as an art teacher for various ages and backgrounds. How does having a formal background in studio art as well as art education inform your art process?
Well, teaching has always been an interesting process for me. In order to teach, I had to learn to use and understand a wide variety of art mediums. I also learned a great deal from the new ideas that my students demonstrated as they created their work. It was fascinating to see some of the ideas that they came up with, and I learned a lot from them, and hopefully they learned a lot from me. I don't teach in a classroom anymore, but I do have two grandsons, and they're both interested in art in different ways, and I've been really working hard to encourage them and teach them, so I've kept it up.
Yeah, was that like a very rewarding experience for you?
Yes, very much so. I see them often, and I really, especially the younger one, I've been really trying to work with him, and he's really taken an interest, so.
Nice.
Yes.
That's great. Continue with the theme of art education. Were there any impactful moments that you look back on and smile from your career as an art teacher?
Not far from here, consisting of people who had some art background and others who had never had any interest in art at all. But by the end of the semester, each person proudly showed their work, from acrylic paintings to hand-sewn stuffed animals. Their creativity and determination to try something new was inspirational and certainly made me smile.
That's so great. You also mentioned in your About page that you are a longtime contributor to the South African charity Ubuntu Pathways. Could you please tell us more about the reasons you chose to support this charity?
Yes. My youngest son, the father of two little boys, became involved with this NGO, which is a non-governmental organization, soon after it was started more than 25 years ago by his childhood friend. Their goal had always been to help children from cradle to career Through a comprehensive system of education, health, and household support, Ubuntu now serves 2,000 orphaned and vulnerable children each year, placing them on a pathway out of poverty. My son and his wife went on to join Ubuntu's executive committee, a team of dedicated leaders guiding the organization's strategy and sustainability. They lived in Port Elizabeth, which is on the Indian Ocean, now called Caberca. They've changed the name to make it more of a COSA name for 11 years. They lived in Port Elizabeth for 11 years before returning to the U.S. And they continue to work for Ubuntu Pathways with frequent trips back to South Africa. In fact, my daughter-in-law goes at least 5 times a year.
Wow.
She's in charge of a lot of the programming they do and the hiring and everything of teachers. And they work very hard to hire people from the community. Yes, and many of the people that work there have been people that have gone through their program, gone on to college, and really been extraordinary.
That is amazing.
Yeah.
Have you gone to
Yes,
South Africa?
yes, we've been there 11 times.
Wow.
Yes, it's been an unbelievable experience.
Wow, yeah.
It's a place I never thought I'd ever be.
Yeah, I'm sure. Is it amazing there? Beautiful?
Yes, it is. It's the extremes are sometimes beautiful, sometimes a little not so great, but sometimes it looks like a total desert, and other places we've gone it looks like New Hampshire, filled with trees and mountains, so and and then the ocean. As I said, it sits right on the Indian Ocean, and it's just beautiful.
Yeah, it sounds
Beautiful
amazing.
country. Yeah.
Wow.
And of course the safaris.
Oh yeah, I'm sure. I'm sure
Yes.
the animals must
Yes,
be crazy.
yes, it is. It's an
Wow.
experience I never expected to see, and so glad that I did.
As a follow-up question, how do you choose which aspects of the South African culture you incorporate into your works?
In my visits to South Africa, I spent a lot of time on the Eastern Cape, which is where Ubuntu Pathways is located, and where I met many people who were part of the COSA ethnic group. And they speak COSA, which is that clicking language. I don't know who Miriam Makeba was, but she's a singer, and that she sings in COSA a lot and uses the clicking language. I became interested in their art, which is often beaded, and certain fabric called shwe, which is only found in that region. So every time I've gone, my daughter-in-law runs saying, "Oh, they bring me back some." It's beautiful. Its color, design, and patterns are very distinctive. I created a few mixed media pieces based on the drastically different architecture I saw in the area. The big cities contain some beautiful old buildings and some really interesting new modern ones. But then there is the sharp contrast to the townships where during apartheid all people of color were forced to live. And the homes and other structures, which are packed very tightly together with hardly any spaces between them, are all made of cardboard and sheets of tin, which is what these people were given when they were forced out of their homes in the cities. That's what they were given to construct their housing. There are very few streets or sidewalks because they never put anyone would own a car.
Yeah.
And this has not changed much since apartheid ended in 1994. But some people have broken away, but it's hard for people to move. Their community is there, but they're trying.
Yeah.
And Ubuntu Pathways is trying very hard to help them do that, help the children especially do that.
Okay, I have one last question. Do you have a favorite flower or plant you like to include in your works, and what does this plant mean to you?
Well, I rarely go out in search of a particular flower or plant, but in my travels, I'm always on the lookout for the most interesting plants and leaves and trees and colors that I see. I photograph them all so I can study my photographs as I try to come up with my next art piece. I'm always looking for inspiration.
Thank you so much, Judy, for taking the time out of your day to give us a better insight into your work and artistic processes. We're very excited to showcase your work in our exhibition Between Stillness and Surge on view from October 27th to January 9th, 2026. Thank you again for your contributions to our show, and I hope you have a great rest of your day.